Hi, I'm John Stevenson. We're going to be looking at Jacob's flight from Haran in our study of the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 31. Now Jacob heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what belonged to our father he has made all this wealth. Jacob had been he'd been doing a little bit of his own conniving, but mostly we're going to find out that the Lord was the one who had blessed him. And Jacob saw the attitude of Laban, and behold, it was not friendly toward him as formerly. And then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. Now what God is saying when he says, I'm going to be with you, God had promised the same thing to Isaac back in Genesis chapter 26, verse 3. He had said something similar to Jacob when Jacob was leaving the land. God had said, go ahead and go. I'll go with you when you go, and I'm going to be with you to bring you back as well. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to his flock in the field, and said to them, I see your father's attitude, that it is not friendly toward me as formerly, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I've served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has cheated me, and changed my wages 10 times. However, God did not allow him to hurt me. If he spoke thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flock brought forth speckled. And if he spoke thus, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock brought forth striped. Now, Jacob had done what he could do. We know now, that really wouldn't be all that effective. What he could do to try to influence that, he didn't know that much about genetics. But God had blessed him. It was God who had done it. And Jacob recognizes that now, here in verse 9. Thus God has taken away your father's livestock and given them to me. Genesis 31:14, Rachel and Leah said to him, do we still have any portion or inheritance in our father's house? What they're asking about is the dowry. And of course, Jacob hadn't had any money going into the arrangement, so he had worked for, as if it were a dowry. He'd sold himself into slavery, basically, for Laban. Verse 15, are we not reckoned by him as foreigners? For he has sold us and has also entirely consumed our purchase price. So not only are they now thoroughly Jacob's, but also the purchase price has been squandered by Laban. Verse 16, surely all the wealth which God has taken away from our father belongs to us and our children. Now then, do whatever God has said to you. Then Jacob arose and put his children and his wives upon camels, and he drove away all his livestock and all his property which he had gathered, his acquired livestock which he had gathered in Padan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Jacob is making a run for it, and he's doing it without telling his father-in-law. When Laban had gone to shear his flock, then Rachel stole the household idols that were her father's. This is an added development, something that Jacob doesn't know about, and it's going to have long-term repercussions. These household idols, the Hebrew word is the teraphim. They're little tiny statues. We know of them from archaeology. We've found them all throughout the Middle East, and certainly they would be prayed to, although there is also some evidence that at least in certain portions of the area of Mesopotamia where this is taking place, that they could also serve as title deeds to land and or property. Now, does Rachel have that in mind? Does she have in mind worship? We're not told, but this is not a good thing. So he, that is Jacob, fled with all that he had, and he arose and crossed the river, the Euphrates is the one they're talking about, and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. That's the next stop as you get to Canaan. So they're leaving Haran, and now they're moving down to Canaan. When it was told Laban on the 3rd day that Jacob had fled, notice the 3rd day, that's sort of interesting. Warren Gage has done a study of all the 3rd day episodes and sees significance. And sometimes they're significant, sometimes it's just the day after the 2nd day. But it's mentioned, And maybe because of that it's significant. Verse 23, then he took his kinsman, that is Laban takes his kinsman with him, and pursued him a distance of 7 days' journey. Now again, we're seeing some interesting numbers that are mentioned and didn't have to be mentioned, but they are. So on the third day he pursues him a distance of 7 days' journey, and he overtook him in the hill country of Gilead. That's on just to the east of the Jordan River. Verse 24, God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream of the night, and said to him, be careful that you do not speak to Jacob either good or bad. In other words, you've got vengeance in your heart. Don't go there, Laban. Laban caught up with Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen camped in the hill country of Gilead. Again, Gilead is to the east of the Jordan River. Then Laban said to Jacob, what have you done by deceiving me and carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword? You've Jacobed me. Why did you flee secretly and deceive me, and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with joy and with songs, with timbrel and with lyre, and did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to speak either good or bad to Jacob. Now you have indeed gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house, but why did you steal my gods? And so he says, okay, you took my daughters, you took my grandkids. That's sort of water under the bridge because God said, that's okay. But now I have this one issue. You took my teraphim, my gods, my idols. Then Jacob replied to Laban, well, because I was afraid. And he's not talking about why he took the idols, because he didn't know that anybody from his camp has done that. But he's replying as to why he left. Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Jacob goes on to say, the one with whom you find your God shall not live. Now what he's doing, he doesn't realize it, he's placing a curse upon whoever has stolen the idols, not realizing that it's Rachel who's the guilty party. So he's placing a curse upon Rachel. He goes on to say, in the presence of our kinsmen, point out what is yours among my belongings and take it for yourself. For Jacob, and here's the explanation, for Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the two maids. He didn't find any of them. Then he went out of Leah's tent, notice how the suspense is building up, and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household idols, the teraphim, and put them in the camel's saddle. And she sat on them, and Laban felt all through the tent, did not find them. She said to her father, Let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of women is upon me. It's that time of the month. I have my, as it is with women, I can't get up. And so he searched but did not find the household idols. So her father does not discover her deception. But God knows, and we the reader know the deception. And what's going to happen, because she has said it this way, she's going to die in childbirth. She's going to have the manner of woman in a way she's not expecting, and her words are going to come back to haunt her. The next child she has will be Benjamin, and she will die in delivering him. Now Jacob now addresses Laban, because Laban's done his search, and Jacob says, I kept my part of the bargain. I worked for you, and even though you had cheated me, and then I worked another 7 years, and I worked another 7 years after that, and I served you for your daughters, and then when we had wage agreements where I would work and I'd get a certain portion of the sheep, you kept changing what that was going to be. And if it looked like it was going to be in your favor, you'd change it so that it would, if it looked like it was going to be in my favor, you'd change it so it was going to be in your favor. And you kept changing it again and again and again, and you only treated me now right because God made you do it. And so Laban proposes to enter into a covenant with Jacob. And they raise up a standing stone. sort of like we saw at Bethel earlier. And Laban calls the stone Jegar Jahudatha, the heap of the testimony. Jacob gives it another name. He calls the stone Galeed, the witness pile, but it's also going to become known as Mitzvah, the place of looking. And the arrangement is Laban says, look, you're not going to come past the stone on my side, and I'm not going to come past the stone on your side. Sort of fences make high borders sort of idea. And so to commemorate this, Jacob offers up a sacrifice on the mountain and called his kinsmen to the meal. And they ate the meal and spent the night on the mountain. Now notice, we had 3 days mentioned, and now they come to a mountain and they eat a meal and spend the night, and it's a memorial for peace. And it reminds me of another meal that also is a memorial for peace. Peace that was made because Jesus came, died in our place, and then made the way for peace between man and God. And here's the earlier one, Jacob, although in a little bit his name is going to be changed. And he's doing the same thing.